Welcome into On Texas Football, Saturday morning conversation. I'm Bobby Burton, joined this morning by the esteemed Paul Finebaum, the Paul Finebaum. You catch the show on ESPN in the SEC network each and every weekday. Paul, I appreciate you joining us. You've been on before, and wanted to ask you first and foremost about the state of college football in your eyes. But I got to ask you, did you get the invite to the president's shindig next Friday?
I can confidently tell you no. And probably the reason I didn't is that I'm sure the DC Fire Department's already said there's going to be too many people in the room as it is.
Hey, here's the question I have for you. And I know you're a fan of college football like I am. It's one of the things I love about how you bring people in on your show that are fans of college football, all levels, and my question to you is, what's the biggest thing facing college football right now, in your opinion, as a problem that is rudimentary or basic to the game?
I mean, ultimately, there's simply no one in charge and accountable. And you always hear, well, we need this guy to run college football, or we need this. You have to. Every organization, every entity has to have some check and balance. In college football right now, it doesn't. You can do whatever you want and more than likely get away with it. So who's in charge? Nobody's in charge. We didn't like the NCAA enforcement division when they had power. And now that nobody has any enforcement power, it makes it even more obvious that you need some check and balance. And so what is the biggest problem? It's probably the transfer portal, where there's just simply no accountability. But these are not easily solved problems, primarily because leadership in college athletics let this slip away a long time ago. And every different conference has so many issues within their own boardrooms that you're not going to get any coalescing around the real problem. I know I've given you a long answer. I try to avoid just saying it's hopeless. Because Saturdays are still a great day in college football. The rest of the week is terrible, though.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. I look at it, and you mentioned there are no guardrails. There's no rules. It's like the problem isn't the game itself. It's the ecosystem of the game. The rules are, there are no rules. And I think that's where fans like you and I get kind of concerned with what's going forward, right? And how do we deal with this? The meeting next Friday should be interesting. A couple other questions for you, Paul. What do you make of all the 6th and 7th year eligibility issues? Is that something that you just think is symptomatic of the problem as a whole of no leadership, or is that something that you think's really tugging at the integrity of the game in college football?
Well, I don't think the game has much integrity. So for somebody to get a 6th or 7th year doesn't really faze me very much, except that it's just the system is so open-ended. And, there was a time when 30, 40 years ago, the Southwest Commissioner, the Big 12, the SEC, whatever it is, that commissioner had power and said, you're not doing it. And if you do, you face the consequences. Well, that's not the case anymore. So you go out and hire a lawyer, and you find a friendly court, and you may or may not get away with it. It's not a slam dunk, but you have a pretty good shot. So you literally, where have you heard this before? You make it up as you go along. In the case of Joey Aguilar, I played 3 years of junior college, but that doesn't count. Well, it used to, but now it doesn't. You have about a 50-50 shot at finding a judge. In Trinidad Chambliss's case, he found the judge. That was a different. He actually got the right decision. Aguilar did not. Aguilar got the right decision too. He shouldn't be allowed to play. But it's really the fact that nobody has any jurisdiction. And I understand why the conferences don't want to be in the enforcement business, but the commissioner of the SEC or the Big 12 should have some power, and right now they don't.
Paul, you have influence nationally, obviously, with your show. But I want to ask you, before I ask you about SEC expectations this coming year and Arch Manning and all of that stuff, I want to ask you something about what I call SEC complacency. Before Texas and OU joined, the SEC had won how many championships in a row, essentially, other than Ohio State, maybe. Now we're looking at 3 consecutive years where the Big Ten has won the national championship. Texas and OU joined the SEC 2 years ago. They immediately go to the college football playoffs in years 1 and 2 in the league. My question to you is it SEC complacency that has put them in this situation, or is it NIL that has come home to roost and made it equal in the eyes of the Big Ten? Because that's their rallying cry. In other words, I think that the SEC is still a great conference, may still be the best conference from top to bottom, in my opinion, but it's not winning the big one right now. Is that complacency, or is there something else?
I don't think you can put it on any one thing, because I can go into every one of these 3 years and give you a specific, and I won't do that. I'll only give you one. Okay. But the most prominent was probably in 24, when Georgia had the best team in the country and they didn't play in the playoff. They lost a one-score game against Alabama, and they were out. And so they should have won that year. And the other 2 years, debatable about this or that, but it's a big pond out there. And you cannot, whatever everybody says they think they knew, no one predicted Indiana this year. It's one of the biggest flukes in terms of beginning to end I've ever seen. They were a good team at the beginning. Their own league didn't recognize it. Remember, the Big Ten media voted them number 6 in the Big Ten. So don't blame the SEC for that one. So I know a lot of people have said, well, what's going on here? It's just, it's a cyclical effect. The same teams, 3 years ago, it didn't look like the Kansas City Chiefs would ever lose a game. And this year they didn't even make the playoffs. So these things do happen. The problem is that the SEC has gotten so big and so bloated and so full of itself that it comes back to haunt the league when something like this happens. And I know some people are saying around the country, "Oh, that's easy for you to say. You're there leading the band." True, but we all learn. And I really thought the NCC was impenetrable, even after 2 years of it. And I said in the middle of October, I don't think Indiana could come down here and play Alabama's schedule. You know what? They could. Because as I go back and look at every one of these games that Alabama played, and I used Alabama as an example because everybody was praising them. Oh man, they went through this gauntlet. After Georgia, they went through a gauntlet of beating Vanderbilt, Missouri, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Vanderbilt was the best of those 4, and they weren't that great. So we just we all get so hung up in this bubble, and I'm sure for a Texas fan, it's all a little bit new to you, but most of it is our own fault.
Yeah, I just wonder the Big Ten's rightfully proud 3 consecutive championships. 3 different teams in that regard. The thought process I have there is as it relates to NIL, and I do think that has taken some luster away from the SEC, and more kids will go up north if they'll follow the money, et cetera. Questions on your expectations this year for the SEC itself, though. You have been extremely high on Arch Manning from the outset. I think that early on he made you look bad with your famous prediction, but as the season wore on, Paul, he may have been one of the top quarterbacks in the country, especially against Michigan in the Cheez-It Bowl. I mean, he literally had a coming out party against them. What are your thoughts on the SEC this year, Arch Manning, et cetera?
Yeah, I think he finished the way we thought he would begin, and it was probably unrealistic. But you understand, you're in this business. You go on these shows, and I made the famous statement, I think, on July 2nd. You're sitting there, you're on a show emanating from New York, and you just throw stuff up against the wall, and that one caught. And by the way, I may end up being proven correct, but I certainly wasn't for the first 2 months of the season. But those are things I don't lose a lot of sleep over, and I know you don't either. You just say things because, But it's not like I just said something crazy. It was. You cover Texas. We were hearing those type of comments from people that saw Arch Manning in the spring, that he very well could be one of the best of all time. I think as far as this season is concerned, I think it's the same too that I really began last year with Texas and Georgia. And are there? I'm a big schedule guy because schedules usually can be a school's undoing. And this year in the SEC, someone's going to get very unlucky. Someone is going to have those 5 conference road games, and they're going to run into the wrong team on the wrong day. And, who is that team? Is it Arkansas? Is it Missouri? Is it South Carolina? Last year, it was Florida. I mean, there's no reason Texas lost to Florida. We were down there that day, as I know you were, and that Florida team was terrible. But it's just, you get into a tight game, you're on the road, and next thing you know, one team plays well and the other one doesn't. Does that what does that mean? Does that happen in the Big Ten? No, it doesn't really happen very often. You don't go to the team that fired its coach and finished in the bottom quarter of the league. You don't go to Northwestern and lose very often, or to Minnesota or Wisconsin. But it happened. It happens in the SEC.
Yeah, or Nebraska these days. I mean, Texas went on the road to Mississippi State and pulled out a miracle, essentially.
Exactly.
I agree with that. Georgia, you mentioned Gunnar Stockton's back. The team that looks good on paper but has a new quarterback, and we don't know who that quarterback is right now, is Alabama to me. Your thoughts on the Crimson Tide this year? They don't play Texas, but I think they've got quite a team.
They do have a really good team on paper, and I live in Alabama, so I see their schedule a lot when you're walking into a coffee shop, and they have a really good schedule. They should be 5-0 going into Georgia. It's just so much is going to depend on how good is LSU, how good is Tennessee, which Alabama has on the road. Is South Carolina capable? South Carolina probably should have beaten Alabama 2 straight years. So right now, one game for a school like Alabama or Texas, for that matter, very well may determine whether they get to the playoffs or not. I just wonder about Alabama's quarterback situation, and it's unknown. And I'll take a known quarterback any day over an unknown.
Yeah, I agree with that. And their college football teams are paying for that known factor these days as well. You mentioned LSU there. Lane Kiffin and you have had some very fun interchanges through the years. As a fan, I think it's awesome. And I think you do a great job of handling that. I mean, some people would cower in the face of that sort of scrutiny from a head football coach, but I think you do a great job with it. What do you make of I think Lane Kiffin's great for college football, makes people take themselves less seriously, I think, a little bit about the sport at times. But what do you think of him moving from from Ole Miss to LSU?
I like the move. There was no way for it ever to be good. And he made a calculated gamble, and he almost lost. He gambled that this team is probably not going to get by Georgia. I'm going to bail. They happened to get by Georgia. And he almost, had they gotten by Miami and played for the national championship, Kiffin probably would have never lived with himself. But he won the gamble. It was ugly. It had a bunch of talking heads like me on TV going, it's a disgrace, all the stuff that doesn't matter anymore. And I think he'll win a championship at LSU. It's a better job. That's been proven. He's got tremendous buy-in, and he's got a team capable of going to the playoffs.
You have a dark horse in the SEC this year?
I think for a dark horse, you have to go pretty low. So do you, I don't have one I'm confident in. Do you gamble on South Carolina with Lenore Sellers? They have Harbor's a great receiver. They're probably the one that could make the turn better than anyone else, because they should have done it last year and they lost a 4-touchdown lead at Kyle Field. They lost a 2-touchdown lead against Alabama at home. So you turn those 2 games around and a couple of tweeners, and they have a chance. I'm never going with Missouri again. I promise you. I've been told too many times Missouri is going to be the dark horse, but that won't ever happen.
Eli Drinkwitz has that voodoo that he can put on.
Yeah, every year Missouri, and then they're 8-5. But they had that one big year, but I don't. So I don't really have a good. But I don't have a great one. I think what we're looking at is primarily Texas, Georgia, and then probably A&M. And then who do you put in that next group? Is it Alabama? Is it Oklahoma? I hear really good things about Oklahoma, but I've seen them blow some pretty big games.
Yeah, Mateer is so up. 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions last year. Like Marcel Reed, had some issues in big games at times. All right, I'm going to end it with this, and I really do thank you for your time, Paul. What do you love most? And I don't know that I've ever heard you answer this. What do you love most about your job and doing this for a living? You're 70 years old. This turned down a Senate run in Alabama. You've done this for your lifetime's work. What do you love most about your job, man?
Yeah, there was a time, I'll give you a political answer here, since I've been doing that for the last couple of months. There was a time when, as a sports writer, I loved Saturdays at the stadium. And what I love the most now is hearing people express that passion. And that's the great part about doing a talk show, is every day you don't know what you're going to get. You're somebody who lost a mother, a father, a child, and express how the connection of college football has made their lives meaningful, and maybe even watching what we do or listening to what we do. So I think right now that's where I get the most enjoyment out of it. I'm always amazed on Saturday when I get to a campus and I'm like saying to myself, not very loud, like, what do these people do? Why are they here at 7:00 in the morning for the game that starts at 7 tonight? I've never really understood that, but you and I have always been on the other side of it, Bobby. And I think, I know every time I talk to somebody who's my age and I'm going to retire and I'm going to be a fan, I don't know if that's what I'm going to do when I leave this, but I'm always amazed at what those 12 Saturdays mean to the people that consume what we do.
Yeah, it's the passion, man. You can't, it's contagious. Paul, thank you so much for your time for this morning. I appreciate you. Good luck this week. I hope you actually get a late invite to the White House. I'd be happy to hear about that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure whenever that is next Friday or whenever, I'm sure they're going to solve a lot of problems, because when you get 40 or 50 people in a room and the president hosting it, that everyone will get an equal chance to talk.
I'm sure it'll just be so easily done. And you're right. Tough times ahead. Hopefully they can get it figured out, because to Paul's point, and I think to my point as well, it's a game that we love, and it evokes something in us that brings us all together a little bit and apart at times too, in a healthy way sometimes. All right, Paul, thank you so much. Best of luck the rest of the day. Again, watch him on ESPN's SEC Network. Paul, you are one of the best, and I really, really appreciate you coming on.